Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and happy time zone, if you even have one of those in your corner of the universe. Moonbeam directly to your screens, it's your host, Tekkaguya, welcoming you to the first episode of AEOS Radio. I won't be doing a proper full-on intro like this for every episode, but as a brief rundown of what you can expect from this ongoing series, I'll be talking about current events in Unite, such as patches, general updates, new Pokemon, offering my highly demanded opinions, and also there'll be beautiful B-roll footage of me molding in solo queue or playing with friends or other funny stuff that I feel like putting up on the screen. And serving as both a disclaimer and an explanation as to the purpose of AEOS Radio, this is basically a space for me to yap about my own opinions in a format that's easy to listen to. There will, of course, be visuals here and there, but having this on in the background while you do something else is a perfect way to consume this content. I've made all sorts of videos before and have never landed on something that I want to stick to, but I finally settled on a game I've loved for a long time. I'll strive to be consistent, but there will be changes here and there as I learn more about editing, script writing, and I begin to improve more at the craft. So I hope you can stick along for the ride. Anyway, what is the deal with Mega Evolution? By the time this video is released, Mega Gyarados will be in the game with yet another Charizard on the horizon. After several nightmares of me being repeatedly lifted into the sky and slammed into the ground by Unite moves, I sit in the therapist's office and wonder, where did we go wrong? Now, before I give off the vibe of being an absolute hater, yes I am, but not towards Unite, no. Towards the player base? Perhaps, but that's a completely different video. I truly adore Unite for a myriad of reasons, which could really be several separate videos as well. I can also easily find several things to love about every regional gimmick, Mega Evolution included. However, the implementation of Megas in Pokemon Unite leaves something to be desired. Why is that? The first Megas to grace our game were Mewtwo X and Y, introduced in 2023, around a month apart. I don't think I need to continue the intros at this point because most people watching this were probably around for, let's say, an iconic era in Pokemon Unite's history. These Pokemon came packed with everything we've come to know and love about new Pokemon releases. Cool animations, interesting movesets, and the type of balancing that makes you want to risk it all for a chance to get out of Veteran 1. That being said, there was no other base Mewtwo in the game. Both X and Y forms had clearly defined differences, one being melee and the other being ranged. Don't get me wrong, it's arguable that they played it safe with certain moves, but even the moves with the same name leaned one way or the other to further solidify that Pokemon's identity. These days, those characteristics are even further defined, with one being played like a supportive playmaking tank, while the other is a full-on scaling hypercarry. All of that yap to say, these Pokemon felt original enough and weren't reusing a mon already present in the game. Question break. What Mega Evolution would you like to see in Pokemon Unite next? Let me know in the comments. Isn't this thing kind of cool that we're doing? That this is just an idea I had to kind of split things up and kind of make it less monotonous, you know? So let me know if you like this as well. Okay, break over. Skipping through time past July 15th, 2025's promise of more frequent Pokemon releases to the present day, we now have Lucario, Charizard X, and Gyarados Megas. The introduction of this new generation of Mega Pokemon to coincide with the promotional cycle of Legends EA introduced Mega Stones, implementing them similarly to the way Zacian works. A trade-off for using this Pokemon's tremendous power was the loss of an item slot, that space permanently occupied by Rusted Sword or a Mega Stone in the case of Mega Pokemon. They also went back and changed how the Mewtwo's work, making sure they also needed their respective Mega Stones. And so far, with that, I have no problems. I appreciate the new system. I appreciate the need for consistency, making everything work the same way, so there's no real exceptions. And I think that with how powerful these mons are, it's cool that there's something sacrificed to be able to access that power. However, when you're being run down by a very fed Mega Lucario that is permanently unstoppable, shredding your entire team's health because your team doesn't know how to position, they've decided to all stand right next to it, and it's also healing itself all the way to full health, you're not really going to be thinking, "Ooh, wow, I'm so glad it doesn't have another item to use." Of course, that discussion absolutely leans into balancing issues, which is not necessarily what this video is about. However, these new megas are undoubtedly strong to the point that they almost power creep their OG versions. Almost. But like, what are my actual issues with Mega Evolution in Unite? Much of it's related to the general implementation. To be clear, I know very little about game development and even less about what goes on behind the scenes to facilitate the hard work Unite's developers have put into the game. I've got many criticisms. I've had plenty in regard to the handling of the game, the decisions made about things like ranked or monetization. But there's also a lot of things in the game that feel like a labor of love. So I've got my frustrations, but I try to be understanding because realistically, I just don't know. Like, I don't know what the truth is. I don't know what's really going on. So why assume, you know? I say this because my ideal way of adding Mega Evolution would be for it to be contained within the same license. I'm unsure if, because of the way things have been developed up to this point, it would be difficult to kind of change stuff to make it work like that. I don't know. Yeah, as I've said, I've got no clue at all. But you could still monetize it. But like having it as a form accessible through the same Pokemon makes more sense to me. We also have Pokemon that give us multiple forms, like Scyther. And I think it's more fun and engaging to be able to choose our form in a match based on what's going on in front of us. One of my other issues is the restrictiveness of Mega Pokemon. The originals obviously have 4 moves like most other mons in the game, whereas the Megas have you locked to a specific moveset, which encourages you to use a specific playstyle. The fact that you only have one moveset only further pushes me to want them as something added, as a facet to Pokemon that currently exist, instead of as a way to monetize even more. To further illustrate my thoughts, I use Charizard as an example. Putting my disdain for them when they ult me on sight aside, they have a cool moveset. Moves that enable them to brawl at close range or act as a mage from like a distance. And they also have a pretty cool Unite move that allows them to lock down a single target briefly before flying above your opponents and even your walls to rain down fire. Having movesets that enable different playstyles means that you can adapt on the fly. Obviously, there's still things like itemization, which take place in draft or even before like being in the lobby itself, but you get the idea. Why not just have the Mega Form be something you choose to select in match as well? As for the Force Mega Stone, if it's always in the first slot, you could put an item in that first slot that's, you know, you don't mind getting rid of. So then if you choose the Mega Form in battle, it will just take that one, you know? There would be ways around it. Question break. Woo! Do you like how Mega Evolutions are implemented in Pokemon Unite currently? This is the question I would ask at the end, or I would be like, hey, I want your opinions. Please comment, etc., etc. But I'm also putting it here because it's relevant right now. You obviously don't have to answer straight away. You can continue to listen to this video and formulate your own opinions if you don't have them necessarily right now. But I would love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below if you would like to. Let me know, do you like Mega Evolution? You're not really a fan, etc. And break time is over. Megas being separate licenses also puts a spotlight on their limited moves. They are essentially the same moves, just altered somewhat to be more synergistic with their new abilities or Mega Form, but every mon outside of Unite is capable of learning more than 4 moves, so why not just give them entirely new moves? So they like stand out more because they're separate licenses. The argument against that here is that they're just Megas. It makes sense that they have the same moves, but kind of, you know, powered up. It shows that they have gone into their new form and they've got stronger versions of those moves. Like, that makes sense. But the fact that they are separate licenses sends a message that they are not the same Pokemon. So perhaps it's a little greedy of me, but give me a reason to want them by like giving me something that's different from what we already have in the game. And on the subject of differences, I would have personally preferred the megas to be genuinely new additions to the game instead of remixes of current Pokemon. As I already mentioned, there was no prior Mewtwo in Unite. The X and Y forms were Mewtwo's first appearance in the game. But we already had Lucario, Charizard, so on and so forth. This might just be me, but whether or not it's my favorite, I get excited to see brand new Pokemon in the game. The animations are cool, the way they implement moves in a MOBA setting is cool, etc. I'm significantly less interested in seeing a new form of a mon that's already here if the way it's implemented is also not that interesting. At this point, just use those resources to give me an entirely new Pokemon with its Mega Form included. Or not, because at least it will be different, so I will have a higher level of appreciation for it. And, like, don't get me started on the fact there will be 3 Charizards in the game. Like, at that point, both forms could have been one, and like, I understand we have Mewtwo X and Y, so it makes sense to have Charizard X and Y, but like, it just seems a bit silly to me. Overall, I like the concept of Mega Evolution. I've loved them in the games, like in the mainline games and stuff, and I think I was super hyped to have them. And I do think still that these Pokemon have the potential to be interesting and game-changing in ways that aren't just stomping ladder or being permabanned in draft. Obviously that requires some level of balancing as well, but I do wish the developers wouldn't play it so safe if they're just going to give us repeats of already released Pokemon. Being able to remix an existing character in the game presents the unique opportunity to provide another perspective on a Pokemon based on its numerous appearances in the franchise. Despite all the source material and routes they could have gone, they did things in a way that feels kind of predictable and honestly a bit disappointing. That being said, it's still, like, all of that aside, like, it's still really cool to see the Megas in the first place, just like it's pretty cool for me personally to see any Pokemon in the game, because I do love to see how they're designed and how, like, their kits and stuff, and, well, maybe less so for Megas because they've only got, like, 2 moves, basically, and then, the Unite move, you know, it's, like, not that different, but still, the animations, visuals, is something I really enjoy. So, to that extent, I do like them. I just think that they absolutely could have gone in a more interesting direction with all of them so far. So it's unfortunate that we're here now. Anyway, yap over. I open the floor for other opinions. As I said in the last question break, I would ask here for your opinions. What are your thoughts on Mega Evolution in Pokemon Unite? Would you do things differently? Or do you love them and think they're the coolest thing they've added in the game so far? All of these opinions are valid, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. So please leave as much as you want or as little. I would love to hear it. And I really hope you like this first episode of AEOS Radio. Thank you so much for watching or listening or both, if you feel so inclined to do so. And also like and subscribe. Feel free to share this video, do all of that kind of stuff. Or don't. I cannot control you, but I hope you have good games. And if you see me in Thea Sky Ruins, no, you didn't. Why did I say that? Am I, like, hiding? I don't know what I'm doing in Thea Sky Ruins, but it's completely above board and fine and not, like, criminal or anything. Okay, I've got no outro yet, so bye.